The Draconian Armada disappeared on Earth, and the galaxy can't explain it. The stars seemed different tonight. Susan Martinez stood on the observation deck of the Galactic Council vessel, watching as they approached the blue planet. Earth looked so small from here, so vulnerable. But Susan knew better. She had been assigned as the messenger of doom, and she didn't like this role one bit. "We'll enter Earth's orbit in 30 minutes, Envoy Martinez," said the pilot. Susan nodded. "Thank you. Is the communication channel to Earth's United Defense Coalition headquarters ready?" "Yes, Envoy. They're expecting your transmission." Susan took a deep breath. The Galactic Council had sent her to deliver terrible news. The Draconian Empire was coming to Earth with the largest invasion fleet ever assembled. No planet had ever survived a Draconian invasion. Not one. The Draconians were the nightmares of the galaxy. Tall, scaled beings with 4 arms and eyes that glowed like hot coals. Their technology was centuries ahead of most civilizations. Their warships could destroy a planet's defenses in hours. Their soldiers fought without fear or mercy. And now they had set their sights on Earth. As Susan's ship landed at the United Defense Coalition headquarters in Geneva, she noticed the unusual calm. People walked with purpose. There was no panic, no visible fear. This wasn't how planets typically responded when learning about an approaching Draconian fleet. General Alan Clark met her at the landing pad. He was a tall man with gray hair and a straight back. His face showed no worry. "Envoy Martinez, welcome to Earth," he said, shaking her hand firmly. "I understand you bring urgent news." Susan got right to the point. "General Clark, the Draconian Empire has dispatched an armada to your planet. 50,000 warships. They'll arrive within 5 days." She expected shock, fear, perhaps anger. Instead, General Clark simply nodded. "We've been tracking them since they entered our galaxy arm," he said. "Please follow me. Science Director Wright is waiting for us." Susan followed him, confused by his response. "General, I don't think you understand. This is the largest Draconian fleet ever assembled. The Galactic Council has authorized emergency evacuation protocols. We can transport perhaps 2 million of your people to safety before the Armada arrives." Alan walked briskly down a corridor and into an elevator. "That won't be necessary, but we appreciate the offer." The elevator descended deep below the surface. When the doors opened, Susan saw a vast command center. Hundreds of people worked at stations monitoring screens that showed the approaching Draconian fleet. At the center of the room stood a woman with short blonde hair wearing a lab coat. She turned as they approached. "Envoy Martinez, this is Dr. Olivia Wright, our science director," Alan said. Olivia's handshake was quick and firm. "The Galactic Council finally decided to warn us, I see. A bit late, but still appreciated." Susan felt her patience wearing thin. "Dr. Wright, General Clark, the Draconians have conquered over 300 worlds. No one has ever successfully defended against them. The Council's evacuation offer is the only hope for preserving some of your species." Olivia and Alan exchanged a look that Susan couldn't interpret. "Please, show Envoy Martinez the labyrinth," Alan said quietly. Olivia hesitated. "Are you sure? The Council has never been fully trusted with—" "It's time," Alan interrupted. "The Draconians will be here soon. The Council deserves to know." Olivia nodded and led them to another elevator. This one required multiple security scans before it began its descent even deeper into Earth's crust. "What's the labyrinth?" Susan asked. "Humanity's response to threats like the Draconians," Olivia replied. "We've been developing it for 30 years, ever since we learned about the wider galaxy." The elevator stopped, and the doors opened to reveal a massive circular chamber. In the center was a strange device that seemed to pulse with energy, though Susan could detect no radiation or emissions from it. Around it, dozens of scientists monitored equipment. "This doesn't look like a weapon," Susan said. "It's not, at least not in the way you understand weapons," Olivia explained. "Project Labyrinth doesn't destroy, it redirects." "Redirects what?" "Reality, from an invader's perspective," Alan said. "Specifically probability pathways." Susan looked between them. I don't understand. Olivia smiled slightly. Early in our development, humans discovered something unusual about our consciousness. When billions of minds focus together, we can affect quantum probability. Project Labyrinth amplifies this effect, creating what we call probability mazes that only affect those with hostile intent toward Earth. That's impossible, Susan said flatly. No species has that capability. And yet here we are, Alan replied. We've tested it successfully against smaller threats. The Draconians will be our first full-scale deployment. On the main screen of the chamber, the Draconian fleet appeared as thousands of red dots approaching the solar system. What exactly will happen to them? Susan asked, still disbelieving. They'll get lost, Olivia said simply. Not in space, but in probability. Each Draconian will experience a different version of reality. Some will see empty planets where Earth should be. Others might find themselves looping back to where they started. Some will see impossible things that their minds can't process. And they'll never find Earth? Susan asked. Never reach your cities? Some might, Alan admitted. No defense is perfect, but most will simply disappear. Susan watched the screens as the first outlying Draconian scout ships entered the solar system. The Council will want to know how this technology works. I'm sure they will, Olivia said with a small smile. But some secrets must remain with humanity. We've seen how the Council handles powerful technologies. Over the next few days, Susan watched as Earth prepared. Unlike other planets facing Draconian invasion, there was no mass panic. People continued their daily lives. Military forces moved into position calmly. Underground shelters filled in an orderly fashion. President Nicole Bennett addressed the world on the eve of the Draconian arrival. Citizens of Earth, we have prepared for this day. Trust in our defenses. Trust in each other. Humanity has faced countless threats throughout our history. We will face this one united. From the United Defense Coalition headquarters, Susan watched the massive Draconian fleet enter Earth orbit. The enormous warships darkened the skies over major cities. Commander Vexthar, the leader of the Draconian forces, sent his ultimatum to every communication device on the planet. People of Earth, you will surrender your world to the Draconian Empire within one rotation of your planet. Resistance means extinction. This is the way of the universe. The strong conquer. The weak perish. Choose wisely. Susan looked at Alan and Olivia. It begins now, doesn't it? They nodded, and Olivia pressed her hand against a scanner. Throughout the planet, hidden devices activated. There was no visible beam, no dramatic energy pulse, just a subtle shift in the air, like the feeling before a storm. Now we watch, Alan said, as the most powerful armada in the galaxy learns why Earth has always been different. The Draconian Armada disappeared on Earth, and the galaxy can't explain it. The massive Draconian ships hung in Earth's sky like dark clouds. People looked up from every corner of the planet to see the alien vessels blocking out the sun. In Washington, D.C., the largest ship hovered directly over the White House. Commander Vexthar stood on the bridge of his flagship, his scaled skin reflecting the blue light of the control panels. 4 arms worked simultaneously on different screens as he prepared for the conquest of yet another world. Status report, he demanded. All ships in position, Commander. His second-in-command Kral replied. No defensive measures detected from the humans. Their military vessels remain in dock. No weapon systems have activated. Vexthar narrowed his glowing red eyes. Unusual. Send scout ships to their capital cities. I want eyes on their leaders before we begin the full invasion. 20 scout ships descended through Earth's atmosphere, landing in major cities across the planet. In Washington, D.C., Kral led a team of 10 Draconian soldiers to the designated meeting point where human representatives waited. Jack Howard stood at the front of the human delegation. He wore a simple gray suit and showed no signs of fear as the aliens approached. Behind him stood 5 other diplomats, all appearing strangely calm. I am Sub-Commander Kral of the Draconian Empire, the alien announced, his voice translated through a device on his chest. Your planet is now under our control. We demand immediate surrender from your world leaders. Jack smiled slightly. Welcome to Earth, Sub-Commander. I'm Jack Howard, Diplomatic Liaison for the United Defense Coalition. We received your commander's message. Perhaps we can discuss terms? Kral's upper arms tightened around his weapon. There are no terms to discuss. Surrender or be destroyed. This is the way of the Draconian Empire. That's disappointing, Jack said, still unnervingly calm. We had hoped for a more productive conversation. But I should tell you something important. What? Kral demanded. Jack's smile widened just slightly. We've been waiting for you for a very long time. Before Kral could respond, his communication device crackled with static. He tried to contact the flagship, but received only broken words in return. Similar scenes played out in cities around the world. Draconian diplomats found their equipment failing in subtle ways. Communication became difficult. Navigation systems showed conflicting information. Back on the flagship, Commander Vexthar grew increasingly frustrated as reports from the scout teams became garbled and inconsistent. Launch the invasion force, he ordered. Full deployment. I want boots on the ground within the hour. 20,000 Draconian dropships began their descent to Earth's surface. Each carried 50 soldiers armed with the most advanced weapons in the galaxy. It would be the largest ground invasion in Draconian history. As the dropships entered Earth's lower atmosphere, strange things began to happen. Pilots reported seeing multiple versions of the same landmarks. Navigation systems showed contradictory landing coordinates. Some ships reported seeing Earth's surface ripple like water. In the command center deep beneath the Geneva headquarters, Susan Martinez watched with Alan Clark and Olivia Wright as the invasion began. It's working, Olivia said, pointing to screens, showing the Draconian ships. The probability fields are active. Susan leaned forward. What exactly am I seeing? Reality becoming fluid for them, Alan explained. Each Draconian is now experiencing a slightly different version of Earth. Their shared reality is fracturing. On the screens, dropships began landing in scattered patterns, far from their intended targets. Some appeared to land in empty fields, when they should have reached cities. Others circled endlessly, unable to find solid ground. Vexthar watched from orbit as his perfect invasion plan fell into chaos. What is happening? He demanded, slamming one of his 4 fists onto the control panel. Unknown, Commander, his ship's computer responded. We are detecting unusual quantum fluctuations throughout the planet's atmosphere. Our systems cannot compensate. Deploy the ground forces that have landed, Vexthar ordered. Begin the assault on whatever targets they can reach. Across Earth, Draconian soldiers emerged from their ships into a world that didn't make sense. Squad leaders tried to organize their troops, but each soldier seemed to see something different. One Draconian platoon marched toward what they believed was a human military base, only to find themselves walking in circles, always returning to their dropship. Another group reported seeing human defenders that weren't there, firing at ghosts. In Chicago, a Draconian force commander led 300 soldiers toward the city center. As they marched, buildings seemed to shift and move. Streets connected in impossible ways. Half his force disappeared when they turned a corner. Their communication signals simply stopped, as if they had ceased to exist. From his flagship, Vexthar watched in growing horror as thousands of his troops vanished from his tracking systems. No signs of battle, no explosion marks. They simply disappeared. Launch the second wave, he commanded, his voice now showing the first hints of fear, and prepare my personal shuttle. I will lead this assault myself. In the Geneva command center, Susan couldn't believe what she was seeing. They're just gone. Where did they go? Olivia checked the readings on Project Labyrinth. They aren't gone in the way you think. They still exist, but in probability states we can't access. The labyrinth creates infinite possible paths, and they've become lost in them. Is this killing them? Susan asked. Alan shook his head. No, we don't destroy. That's not our way. They're experiencing different realities, different versions of their invasion. Some might find their way back eventually, but most will remain in these alternate probability states. On the main screen, they watched as Vexithar's personal shuttle descended toward Washington, D.C. Unlike the other ships, this one moved with purpose, seemingly immune to the probability maze affecting the others. "He's breaking through," Alan said with surprise. "His determination is stronger than we anticipated." Olivia nodded. "Some individuals can resist the effect through sheer will. We expected this might happen with their commander." "What happens now?" Susan asked. "Now," Alan said, "we show him why Earth was never going to fall." Vexithar's shuttle landed in the National Mall, the Washington Monument visible in the distance. The Draconian commander emerged with 20 elite guards, all looking disoriented, but following their leader's confidence. President Nicole Bennett waited on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, flanked not by soldiers but by a small group of scientists and civilian leaders. As Vexithar approached, his weapon raised, something strange happened. The air around him seemed to thicken. His guards froze in place, each one suddenly seeing a different version of reality. And for the first time in his long career of conquest, Commander Vexithar of the Draconian Empire felt something new: fear. The Draconian Armada disappeared on Earth, and the galaxy can't explain it. Commander Vexithar stood frozen before President Nicole Bennett at the Lincoln Memorial. The air around him felt thick, almost like water. His elite guards had stopped moving, each one staring at something only they could see. "What have you done to my soldiers?" Vexithar demanded, his voice shaking with unfamiliar emotion. President Bennett stepped forward calmly. "We haven't harmed them, Commander. They're experiencing alternative probabilities. Your empire has conquered hundreds of worlds, but Earth is different. We always have been." Vexithar raised his weapon, aiming it at the president. His hand trembled. "Stop this now, or I will destroy your cities from orbit." "You can try," Bennett replied, "but your ships are already affected. Look up, Commander." Vexithar looked to the sky. His mighty flagship, which should have been directly overhead, appeared to be in multiple places at once. He saw 3, then 5, then dozens of versions of the same ship, all slightly different, all shifting and changing. "Impossible," he whispered. In orbit, the Draconian fleet was in chaos. Ships reported seeing different versions of Earth. Some captains claimed the planet had vanished completely. Others saw Earth surrounded by defensive systems that hadn't been there before. Weapons officers tried to target major cities but found their targeting computers showing contradictory information. In the Geneva Command Center, Susan Martinez watched the events unfold on multiple screens. She saw Draconian soldiers wandering aimlessly in fields outside Paris. She watched dropships land in the Sahara Desert instead of their intended targets in Cairo. Most disturbing of all, she witnessed entire squadrons of alien troops simply fade from view, becoming transparent until they disappeared completely. "Where are they going?" she asked Olivia. The science director checked readings on her tablet. "Probability paths are infinite, Susan. Some are experiencing a version of Earth where they landed in oceans. Others are seeing an Earth from thousands of years ago, or thousands of years in the future. Some might be experiencing successful invasions believing they've won, while actually being contained in a probability bubble." "And Vexithar?" Susan asked. "Why isn't he affected like the others?" Alan pointed to a screen showing the Draconian commander facing President Bennett. "Strong minds can resist the effect temporarily, but no one can resist it forever, not even him." Around the world, more strange events unfolded. In Beijing, a Draconian battalion marched straight into a lake, continuing forward as if they saw solid ground until they vanished beneath the surface. In Rio de Janeiro, alien soldiers fired at buildings that weren't there, their weapons causing no damage to the actual city. Most Draconian ships in orbit now attempted to retreat, but their navigation systems failed. Some jumped to hyperspace, coordinates that should have taken them back to Draconian space, only to find themselves still orbiting Earth when they emerged. Others drifted aimlessly, their crews unable to agree on what they were seeing. Back at the Lincoln Memorial, Vexithar finally fired his weapon at President Bennett. The energy blast passed through her as if she were a hologram. "I'm not really." "Here, Commander," Bennett's image said. "None of us are where you think we are. That's the nature of Project Labyrinth." Vexthar roared in frustration. "What are you?" "Just humans," Bennett replied. "But humans who learned long ago that reality is more flexible than most species believe. Our ancestors called it magic. Our scientists call it quantum manipulation. Whatever the name, it's kept us safe for thousands of years." One by one, Vexthar's guards disappeared around him. Some screamed before vanishing. Others simply faded away silently. Soon, the Draconian commander stood alone. In orbit, Susan watched, on the command center screens as the Draconian fleet began to thin out. Ships disappeared one by one. Some seemed to fold in on themselves. Others split into multiple copies before all versions vanished. "How long will this continue?" she asked. "Until they're all gone," Alan replied. "Or until they somehow break free of the probability maze. But no one ever has." Olivia studied the data flowing across her screens. Project Labyrinth is operating at full capacity. The collective consciousness of billions of humans is creating and maintaining the probability field. Susan looked confused. "What do you mean by collective consciousness?" "Everyone on Earth is part of Project Labyrinth," Olivia explained. "Not just our scientists or military. Every human mind contributes to the effect whether they know it or not. It's something we discovered about ourselves centuries ago. Individually, our ability to affect quantum states is tiny. Together, we can reshape reality itself." On another screen, they watched Vexthar stumble around the empty space before the Lincoln Memorial. He fired his weapon randomly, hitting nothing. He screamed orders into his communication device, receiving no response. Then he looked directly at the camera as if he could see them watching. "I will return," he said, his voice now calm and cold. "The Draconian Empire will not forget this. We will find a way to counter your technology. We will return with 10 times this force." Alan shook his head. "No, Commander. You won't." At that moment, Vexthar's flagship in orbit, the only major Draconian vessel still visible, fired all its weapons at once. The massive energy beams that could shatter continents hit Earth's atmosphere and split into thousands of harmless light streams like a cosmic aurora spanning the globe. In the Washington sky, multiple versions of the flagship appeared, each firing, each attack harmlessly dissolved. Then, one by one, the ships began to disappear. Vexthar watched his fleet vanish. His forearms dropped to his sides. For the first time in his career as a conqueror, he understood defeat. "What happens to me now?" he asked quietly. No one answered him. He was alone. In the command center, Susan, Alan, and Olivia watched as Vexthar himself finally began to fade. "Is he dying?" Susan asked. "No," Alan said firmly. "We don't kill. He's simply finding his own path in the probability maze. Maybe he'll experience an Earth that surrendered. Maybe he'll find himself back on his home world, believing this was all a dream. Or maybe he'll wander between realities forever. The important thing," Olivia added, "is that he can never harm Earth. None of them can." As the last of the Draconian ships disappeared from orbit, cheers erupted across the command center. Earth had done the impossible. They had defeated the most powerful military force in the galaxy without firing a single conventional shot. Susan stared at the now empty screens in disbelief. "The Galactic Council needs to know about this. Everything we thought we understood about humanity is wrong." Alan nodded. "Yes. And that's exactly why we kept Project Labyrinth secret until now. The galaxy wasn't ready to know what humans can really do. The Draconian Armada disappeared on Earth, and the galaxy can't explain it." News traveled fast across the galaxy. Within days of the Draconian fleet's disappearance, every major civilization knew that something unprecedented had happened at Earth. The mightiest military force known to exist had simply vanished. The Galactic Council called an emergency meeting. Representatives from over 200 worlds gathered in the Great Circular Chamber on the neutral planet Centauri Prime. The room buzzed with theories and questions. Ambassador Zorax of the Pleiadian Federation spoke first. "We have confirmed. Reports that the entire Draconian Armada is gone. 50,000 warships, millions of soldiers, all vanished near Earth. We demand to know what happened." The council leader, an ancient being named Thal, raised his hand for silence. "We have asked the humans to explain. They have agreed to send representatives." Susan Martinez entered the chamber alongside Alan Clark and Olivia Wright. The room fell silent as the three humans walked to the center platform. Susan stepped forward. "Honorable council members, I was present on Earth during the Draconian invasion attempt. I witnessed everything that happened." "Then tell us," Ambassador Zorax demanded. "What weapon did the humans use? How did they destroy an armada that has conquered hundreds of worlds?" "They didn't destroy it," Susan replied. "At least not in the way you think, and there was no conventional weapon involved." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Susan nodded to Olivia, who activated a holographic display showing recordings of the Draconian ships disappearing. Earth defended itself using a technology called Project Labyrinth, Olivia explained. "It creates what we call probability mazes, alterations in how invaders perceive and interact with reality." Ambassador Krell of the Rigelian Compact stood up. "Impossible. No known technology can alter reality itself." "Not technology alone," Alan said. "What you're seeing is the result of technology working in harmony with a unique human characteristic, our collective consciousness." The chamber erupted in disbelief and questions. The council leader had to call for order 3 times before the noise subsided. "Explain this collective consciousness," Thal demanded. Olivia stepped forward. "Early in human development, our species evolved a subtle ability to influence quantum states through conscious observation. Individually, this ability is tiny, barely measurable, but when billions of human minds focus together, amplified, by Project Labyrinth, we can create temporary alterations in how others perceive reality." "Are you claiming humans are psychic?" Ambassador Zorax asked with obvious skepticism. "No," Alan replied. "We're claiming humans have a natural ability that other species might have evolved differently or not at all. Just as some species can see ultraviolet light or hear sounds beyond our range, humans can influence probability at the quantum level when working together." The council chambers remained unusually quiet as the implications sank in. Ambassador Drell of the Andromedan Alliance finally spoke. "Where are the Draconians now? Did you kill them?" "No," Olivia said firmly. "We don't kill. The Draconians still exist, but in different probability states. Some may experience endless loops of their invasion. Others might perceive themselves as having returned home. Still others might wander between various realities, but none can harm Earth or anyone else." Ambassador Krell leaned forward. "How do we know you won't use this ability against other worlds? You could be the greatest threat the galaxy has ever known." Susan answered before Alan or Olivia could speak. "I've worked with humans for years as the Council's envoy. I've studied their history. Humans have had this ability throughout their development, yet they've never used it to conquer. They've only used it for defense. Their own ancient records speak of magic and miracles, early manifestations of this same ability before they understood it scientifically." The chamber remained silent for several moments. Thal, the council leader, finally addressed the humans directly. "We must verify your claims. The council requests permission to send scientists to Earth to study this Project Labyrinth." Alan and Olivia exchanged looks. "We can allow limited observation," Alan said, "but the core technology must remain under human control. I hope you understand why." Across the galaxy, news of Earth's defense system created waves of concern and interest. Species that had lived under draconian threat for centuries suddenly found themselves free. Planets that had paid tribute to the Empire stopped their payments. Former draconian territories declared independence. On the draconian homeworld, confusion reigned. The ruling council had lost contact with their entire invasion fleet. Their attempts to send scout ships to investigate resulted in those ships disappearing as well once they approached Earth's solar system. Meanwhile, on Earth, life returned to normal surprisingly quickly. The skies were clear again. People emerged from shelters. The United Defense Coalition began scaling back Project Labyrinth to its standby mode. In the Geneva headquarters, President Bennett met with Alan, Olivia, and Susan. The Galactic Council is in shock, Susan reported. Some representatives are calling for Earth to be quarantined. Others want to establish immediate alliances. President Bennett nodded. We expected both reactions. We've kept our abilities secret for good reason. What happens now? Susan asked. Alan looked at the displays showing Earth's defense systems returning to normal status. Now we take our place in the galactic community. Not as conquerors, but not as potential victims either. Olivia checked data on her tablet. The probability field is still active around our solar system, but at minimal levels. Any ships with peaceful intent can pass through without issues. Only those with hostile intentions would trigger the full defense. The Council's scientific team will arrive next week, Susan said. They're very eager to understand how Project Labyrinth works. We'll show them what we can, President Bennett replied, but some secrets must remain ours alone. The galaxy isn't ready for everything humans can do. As they spoke, observation stations at the edge of the solar system detected a small ship approaching. It wasn't Draconian. It belonged to a species called the Arcturians, known for their advanced technology and peaceful nature. The ship sent a simple message. People of Earth, we have observed what happened to the Draconian fleet. We come in peace and with great respect. Perhaps it is time for our peoples to meet properly. President Bennett smiled as she read the message. And so it begins, humanity's real introduction to the galaxy. Alan nodded. They're coming to us now not out of pity for a primitive species, but out of respect for equals. Or fear, Olivia added. A healthy dose of caution would be wise, President Bennett agreed. But we'll show them that humans seek friendship, not domination. We've had the power to reshape reality for our entire history, yet we've chosen to use it only for defense. Susan looked out the window at the peaceful Earth landscape. I've served the Galactic Council for 20 years. I thought I understood all the major species. I never imagined humans could do what you've done. We're full of surprises, Alan said with a smile. The Draconians learned that the hard way. The Draconian Armada disappeared on Earth, and the galaxy can't explain it. 3 months after the Draconian fleet disappeared, Earth joined the Galactic Council as a full member. The ceremony took place in the Great Council Chamber on Centauri, Prime. Representatives from over 200 worlds watched as President Nicole Bennett signed the agreement. Earth is honored to take our place among the stars, President Bennett said. We come seeking peace and friendship with all species. The words were simple, but everyone in the chamber understood the unspoken message. Earth was powerful in ways no one had imagined, and it could not be conquered. After the ceremony, Susan Martinez, now appointed as Earth's permanent ambassador to the Council, stood with Alan and Olivia at the reception. Representatives from many worlds approached them, some with curiosity, others with thinly disguised fear. They're afraid of us, Olivia whispered to Alan, as yet another ambassador made a polite excuse to end their conversation quickly. Of course they are, Alan replied. We made the most powerful military force in the galaxy vanish. That changes everything. Susan returned from speaking with the council leader. The Arcturians have requested a private meeting. They want to discuss technology exchange. The Arcturians were known for their advanced science and peaceful nature. Their representative, a tall silver-skinned being named Lyra, met them in a small room away from the main reception. Your Project Labyrinth fascinates us, Lyra said without preamble. We have studied consciousness for thousands of years, yet never discovered the connection to quantum reality that humans have developed. Olivia smiled politely. We're open to scientific exchange, but some aspects of the technology must remain protected. Lyra nodded. Of course, all species have their secrets, but perhaps together we can develop new applications, peaceful ones that benefit all. As they discussed possibilities, news arrived that changed the tone of the gathering. A scout ship from the Draconian homeworld had approached the edge of Earth's solar system. Instead of attacking or disappearing into the probability maze, it had sent a message requesting permission to enter. Back on Earth, in the Geneva Command Center, President Bennett and her advisors debated how to respond. It could be a trick. One general suggested, "Our sensors show only one small ship." Another replied, "No weapon signatures." President Bennett made her decision. "Allow them through, but keep Project Labyrinth on standby." To everyone's surprise, the ship contained only a single Draconian, a female scientist named Kira. She landed at the Geneva spaceport and was escorted to the United Defense Coalition headquarters. "I come seeking answers," Kira explained when she met with President Bennett. "Our ruling council sent me to learn what happened to our fleet. Millions of our people vanished. Families want to know if their loved ones are dead." "They're not dead," President Bennett assured her. "But they can't return to you either." She explained Project Labyrinth in simple terms. Kira listened, her scaled face showing surprise and then understanding. "So they exist in other realities? Alternative probability states?" "Yes," President Bennett confirmed. "We don't destroy, we redirect." Kira was quiet for a long moment. "Our empire has conquered worlds for millennia. No one has ever stopped us, until now." She looked directly at the president. "The ruling council will want this technology." "That isn't possible," President Bennett said firmly. "It wouldn't work. For your people, even if we shared it. The technology is only part of the equation. Humans have a unique connection to quantum reality, a connection your species doesn't have." After Kira returned to her homeworld with this information, the Draconian Empire made a historic announcement. For the first time in its 1,000-year history, the Empire declared peace with a world it had failed to conquer. They would never, again, attempt to invade Earth. Other aggressive species took note. 3 different empires that had been considering Earth as a potential target changed their plans. Word spread quickly. Earth was not to be threatened. A month later, the Galactic Council held a special session focusing on what humans called Project Labyrinth, and what the Council now termed the Human Quantum Effect. Scientists from 12 species presented theories about how humans had developed this unique ability. The most compelling explanation came from an ancient species called the Mentors. Their representative suggested that Earth's unusual history of mass extinctions and challenging conditions had created unique evolutionary pressures. Most intelligent species evolve on worlds with stable conditions, the mentor explained. But Earth has faced catastrophic changes many times. Perhaps humans developed this quantum connection as a survival mechanism, a way to subtly influence reality itself when physical strength wasn't enough. As humanity's place in the galactic community solidified, Earth began sending its first diplomatic missions to other worlds. Olivia Wright led a team of scientists to the Arcturian homeworld to begin collaboration on new technologies. Before leaving, she met with Alan and Susan in the Project Labyrinth facility beneath Geneva. "Do you think we'll ever tell them the whole truth?" Olivia asked quietly. Alan looked at the central device, the quantum amplifier that formed the heart of Project Labyrinth. "No, some secrets must remain ours alone." Susan looked between them. "What whole truth? There's more you haven't shared with the Council?" Olivia smiled slightly. "Project Labyrinth doesn't just create probability mazes, Susan. It's much more than that. With enough focus, humans can actually create new realities, not just redirect existing ones." "You mean," Susan began, her eyes widening. "We mean that if we wanted to, we could reshape the galaxy itself," Alan said. "We could change the past or the future. We could make stars disappear or new planets form, but that kind of power should never be used. We've known this since our earliest days when our ancestors called it magic and created strict rules about its use. That's why we only use it for defense," Olivia added. "The Draconians aren't just lost in probability mazes. They're living in completely new realities that didn't exist until we created them." Susan sat down heavily. "The Council has no idea what humans can really do they?" "No," Alan said. "And they never will, unless someone threatens Earth again." As Olivia prepared to depart for her diplomatic mission, a monitoring station at the edge of the solar system detected a small scout ship from another aggressive species approaching cautiously. Before Earth's defense forces could respond, the ship abruptly changed course and accelerated away at maximum speed. Earth's reputation was spreading throughout the galaxy. This small blue planet was not to be threatened. Its people looked peaceful, but they commanded powers beyond understanding. The Draconian Armada had learned this truth, and now existed only as a warning to others, a mighty fleet that disappeared on Earth, and that the galaxy could never explain.